Hello, and welcome to the Beyond Borders podcast, the podcast that explores topics related to international trade. This podcast is brought to you by Buckland. For over 70 years, Buckland has been working to help companies across the world experience global trade in a better way. As a customer-focused company, we provide you with a single source of unmatched customs brokerage, trade managed solutions, freight forwarding, trade technologies, and warehousing and distribution services. I'm your host, Jenny Kaus, Marketing and Communications Specialist at Buckland, and today I'm speaking with our guest, Chris Borganis. Chris is the Supervisor for Classification in our Compliance Services Office in Southfield, Michigan, and he has been with Buckland for 3 years. Chris is a licensed customs broker and holds his Certified Customs Specialist designation. Chris focuses on classification and specializes in OEM automotive, aftermarket machinery, and testing apparatuses. Welcome to the podcast again, Chris.
Thanks, Jenny. It's great to be back.
We are going to be talking about the Gateway. And the Gateway is a piece of software that Buckland has, but I don't want to give it all away. But what we're going to talk about on today's podcast is what is it? What is the Gateway? What does the Gateway do? What differences does it make for clients? What benefits do they experience from it? And what do you want to do if you want to know more information about this? Chris, on a couple of previous episodes of the Beyond Borders podcast, we got into classification. Would you be able to give us a quick recap on classification, as this is going to relate very closely to what we're talking about with Gateway?
Yeah, I can. So classifications refer to harmonized tariff codes or harmonized codes, which are established with the World Trade Organization. And what they essentially do is each country has their set of codes, while there is some similarities between them. And those codes are used to determine the duty rate of a product that's coming into a specific country.
Great. Thank you for that, because that knowledge definitely informs what we are going to be talking about with the classification gateway. So with that knowledge of kind of understanding basically what is classification, can you now tell us what the Buckland Classification Gateway is?
Yes, I can. So the Classification Gateway is Buckland's web-based managed software for the storage and the actual management and classification of a client's classification codes. That also allows members of a client's supply chain to access existing codes, ensures informational integrity, and allows these supply chain members to request new codes as well. Depending on which customer or what someone's needs are, this could be US HTS codes, this could be Canadian HS codes, this could be Mexican HS codes, export codes, etc. So it would all depend on what specific clients need to utilize our system for.
Wow, this sounds very robust. Like we have, there's a lot of functionality to this. How is it organized?
Yeah, so the gateway is organized into different sections or modules, depending on what specifically a customer would like to do or what a customer needs to do with it. The modules are, some of them. The highlight are the new request module, where customers can submit new classification requests. The My Request module, where one can track the status of all their existing requests. The Search module, which is used to query or export existing commodity information. The Export queue, which is if there's large data downloads, it's a way to organize that for continued visibility. The Process Request module, which is where our team members or clients, depending on who is actually going to be doing the classification, would go in and work these items. And finally, the next major one that we'll go over a little bit today is the Reports module, where the specific queries that are pre-programmed into the system lie, and where customers can go in and run these queries.
Very, very cool. You indicated depending on a user's status, but what types of users are there? That's something I'm curious about.
Yeah, so the gateway is made to be used by all members of a customer's supply chain. So, the users can range from a standard broker level access, let's say, either an entry writer at Buckland or some other company where they would be requesting new classification data, all the way up to customer administration access, which would be the main client contact at our customers, where they can mass edit codes and delete and run reports, etc., in addition to requesting new items. All users in the gateway do have a few sections. They all have the My Request section, the New Request section, the Search section, and the Export Queue sections. But even in those sections, there is some differences depending on, what user level you have. Additionally, all users have access to our help guide, which is located in the top right-hand corner of every screen within the gateway and allows them to quickly click a link and get some help on what specifically they can do or should be doing on that specific window interface.
Perfect. You mentioned the top right of the webpage, but I don't think we've mentioned how to get into the classification gateway. So where can customers go to access that information?
Oh, that's a good question, Jenny. The gateway is integrated into our client portal interface.
Okay.
So for users, and hopefully some of the users on this call that are established in the client portal interface, you can see it there. But all users would need to do is go to www.buckland.com and click the login portion on the top right of the screen. Once they're logged in, the gateway itself is hidden in the International Trade Compliance and Consulting tab, which is on the left of the screen, which is where my group, the compliance group, works.
Great. And so for people who have access to the Buckland client portal, they would only have access to the classification gateway if they had those types of services. So for example, if a customer was a brokerage client, this isn't something that they would see on their client portal interface, correct?
Yeah, so those customers will see the link, but unless you have it activated with our team, it will not be on. That being said, if there's customers who are not currently engaged with compliance that are looking to see what the gateway does and get a little bit more of a deep dive, our team is always available to do some demos and to walk them through, the larger system so they can see it and see if it's something that would benefit their team.
That's great. And I think one of the interesting things that you have said that I didn't realize was that, how you mentioned throughout the supply chain that other people can have access to it. I guess I just imagined it just being the company themselves that had access, but that's incredible to see that there's access throughout their supply chain. I can see how useful that would be.
Yeah, it's really good because it consolidates everything for every member of the supply chain in one place. And it's a great way to make sure that customers aren't using multiple HS codes for different types of entries, or to make sure that everyone knows the same process to how to request a new classification code. So everything's done uniformly.
That's great. Can you tell me kind of what benefits there are for clients using the gateway? I mean, the way that you've explained it, it sounds fantastic. Like it's really going to reduce a lot of that potential for error. It's going to give people a really clear place to find that information. Can you kind of go through some of the benefits that our customers have seen?
Yeah, so I briefly started talking about what I consider the main benefit. And the main benefit is, a synchronization of data. The gateway works so that there can only be one HS code assigned for each part number, which is extremely helpful. And it accounts for spaces. It can account for special characters, which might appear in some but not other part numbers. And it's going to provide each item only one classification code. Once this classification code is provided, we can also send these codes to other specific databases that our customers are using. So whether it be an entry based on our U.S. operations group, whether it be an entry by our Canadian operations group, or whether it be an entry by a third broker that you might use for one specific type of shipments, or other members of your company or your team. Maybe you want to get it uploaded into your SAP system, etc. The gateway keeps the data clean, keeps it crisp and uncorrupted, and then allows you to pass that data on to wherever it's needed. The gateway also is an automated way to request new classifications en masse or to update items en masse, as well as a place where you can search for these classifications and have them at your fingertips in 1 second. It's also important because while you have many members of the supply chain interacting, it provides a good level of visibility in user rights so you can still maintain your data security. You don't have to worry about members of a supply chain who shouldn't be seeing part specifications because the system will lock it down.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So you can choose, different types of users are allowed to see different types of documents. And so, you don't want your product specifications getting into the wrong hands. And the gateway will work to make sure that only those team members that you want to see it can see it.
Great.
Yeah. There's also other features which I find useful, such as automatic emails on change status requests. So if I was requesting a classification code of my team, I would be notified every time my team changes the status of it, or I would be notified if my team has made a comment on the request, and it's sent directly to my email so I can see it without having to log back into the system.
Very good.
The final thing that I think it does that's extremely helpful is it maintains a history of the part. So if an item has its classification code changed, the gateway will store the exact time that code changed, what was the previous value there, and what is the value remaining. And it also stores audit trail information, which is important if you have a customs audit.
Well, and it's funny that you mentioned that because on our last podcast with Nick from the Southfield office, we were talking about customs audits and kind of the intricacies of customs audits and, as well, like how to make sure that you are well prepared in the event of an audit or, a way to avoid perhaps being subject to an audit. And this sounds like it's a great way to keep track of all of that information that you would definitely want to have at your fingertips in case you found yourself in that situation.
It definitely is. It really is. Audit trails are by far the single most important part of a client's classification database and the most important part of the gateway. I'm sure Nick talked about this when he was on, but to summarize, I guess, audit trails themselves are the rationale used to justify a specific classification code. These can take a lot of forms, from a very, very high overview of this is a steel screw, so it should be a screw. But the gateway does much more than that because, in our opinion, and based on the previous interactions we've had when customs has ever questioned an HS, you need a little bit more. So for every classification our team does in the system, we list all of the relevant section and chapter notes. We reference the rulings that would support it, as well as we have what's called classification notes, which are a set of notes that would rule out all other HS codes in a specific format.
Wow. That definitely sounds like some awesome backup. That's for sure. That's great. So I've seen the tariff, and I'm wondering how one goes about eliminating all other HS codes.
Yeah. So in our case, it is that specific classification notes section that I was referencing. Each part will carry some specific information along with the notations necessary. Where if customs ever asked for why this classification was assigned as such, our team would have that information and we could say how confident we are with it at the drop of a dime. So where many service providers will, I just gave the example of a screw. Many service providers will call a motor and save the HS. What we store is much more. So we would store the type of power that's being converted to mechanical electric or energy, the output of wattage, and everything else that would be needed to absolutely confirm and rule out all other HS codes, which is much more in depth than where you would get most other places.
Yeah.
So the idea is that if Canadian or U.S. Customs ever came to you and said, hey, here's a CF-28, we're concerned about this classification, or if even worse, if they ever came to one of our customers and said, we want to do a focused assessment, we would just need to do an export of the gateway database, and they're going to have everything they need immediately assembled and assembled correctly beforehand.
That certainly gives an awful lot of peace of mind, I'm sure, to clients using the gateway to know that they are doing their due diligence and then some. Yeah,
it has been. And, we haven't seen a focused assessment because of the data that's available. Typically, there would be CF28s or other auditing before a full focused assessment is ordered. And because we have this backup on hand, anytime customs has questioned our clients' classification codes, we've had high success in winning those questionnaires, I guess, or you can't really win, but by customs finding no fault and not issuing a CF29, as well as we haven't had those additional steps taken.
Wow, that is fantastic. We touched earlier kind of on reporting. Would you be able to tell me a bit more about reporting with the gateway?
Yeah, so specific users that have that access will be able to run different reports in the gateway. So on one hand, some reports would be exporting the entire database with classification codes. Some of the other reports would be to pull up all the changes in classification codes. So when I was talking earlier about how the system tracks anytime an HS code has changed, our clients can go in and see and make sure what HS codes changed at any time. So we are always working on new reports, and if there's something specifically that clients want to see, we're typically able to work on providing it for them. And really, it's what our clients want to see, the data pulled out of the system itself, because we really do have quite a few field values in the system and quite a bit that they can pull out. It's just our clients, specifying what types and what forms of this data they want to specifically see frequently.
Awesome. This all sounds great. I'm wondering if there's someone out there who's listening and this sounds like it would be the solution that would help them with their supply chain issues and help them be extra prepared and organized. What do you recommend that they do?
Yeah, I would recommend they reach out to CSA Group at buckland.com. With anything that Buckland does, CSA Group would be the first stop. We have an amazing team there that is always super helpful in getting inquiries online and routed to the right people very quickly.
Great. And so if someone reaches out, they can certainly get more information about the gateway, perhaps even a demo to see what it's all about.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. Demos are a lot of fun. It's really great to get client feedback in them as well. Because it's a homegrown system that we do, it's nice because we can always take that client feedback and work on improving the product itself.
So that's an advantage. That's great.
Yeah, that's an advantage that we have here. So if anyone's interested, reach out to CSA Group and we can set something up for them.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today about Buckland's classification gateway. It's certainly something, Chris, that I was obviously aware of, but having you explain really what it does in depth and the benefits that our customers receive through using it, it has really helped me deepen my understanding and have a new appreciation for just how powerful it is. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Jenny. I'm glad it was a help. And as always, it's always a pleasure to be on, and thank you for having me.
I'm sure you'll be back again.
Yeah, they can't get rid of me.
No. That's the Beyond Borders podcast for today. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you to our very special guest, Chris Borganis, for joining us and for sharing your expertise. If you're looking for more resources related to international trade, check out buckland.com and click on the Learning section. It's across the top of the website. Here you're going to find a range of resources, including learning guides, webinars, and podcasts. Our downloadable learning guides include Incoterms charts, common trade terminology, and many more. We also host live monthly webinars, and we invite you to sign up online and secure your spot for an informative presentation followed by a live Q&A session. The best way to keep up to date on all of these resources is through our weekly newsletter. We send out a weekly newsletter every single Wednesday containing our latest resources, as well as a roundup of the latest trade news delivered right to your inbox. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us through our website's Contact Us page, through Twitter, where our handle is @BucklandTweets, or on LinkedIn. Our website is the best place to sign up for our newsletter. Check the bottom of any of the pages on our website to sign up for that newsletter today. And thank you again for listening to the Beyond Borders podcast. And be sure to tune in again and subscribe for more great conversations about importing, exporting, and everything else in the world of logistics and international trade.